Welcome everybody to our 101st AIM Sports Learn Fast webinar. This is the 27th one we've done here in 2021. We're buzzing along pretty well, been doing some really good ones, a lot of feedback from users, those of you that are either here live or watching later on YouTube. Thank you for some of your ideas. We're taking this opportunity for this and maybe for the next 5-6 webinars in a row. We're going to take a little bit of again what we've done in the past. We're going to take and do maybe a little mini series inside of the bigger series of webinars, and we're going to talk about data analysis, and not in which button to push, and not in as much, we've done that quite a bit. How does this actual function work, and how does this function work, and how do we bring these together? And I think that's important, and it's been important for us to do because we needed to get everybody up to speed on the actual functionality. But I think what these next ones are going to be is there may be some of that, but it's going to be really based around, you've got a data session that you've downloaded. You've thought about it. You've either decided you want to, you want to fix one of the three things we always talk about, our performance triangle, right? Driver performance, vehicle health. We look at a data session, we see something, and this is what all of our next, 7-8 webinars are going to be. We've got a session. We've got, we talk about it, we look at it, we analyze the data, we make a decision on some things we want to change. And then in the very next session, we're going to bring that data session up, us and the co-hosts, and we're going to look at those that data session, and we're going to understand what our changes made and be able to compare the two and understand using different functionality and different thought processes. But one data session, make a change, have another data session, see how that changed the car, changed the speed, changed the driver changed something, we changed something on the radiator in a vehicle health, and did it run cooler or warmer? We're going to do actual data analysis like you want to do at the track. And so we're going to focus on that for a little bit and for the next set of webinars. And so we're looking forward to that. But because of that, I wanted to start with this webinar, which is we get a lot of questions with tech support, and I know you might get some questions from some of your friends because a lot of you are heavy users of this information and this software, and they're asking you some of these same basic questions all the time. How do I get my data logger? How do I set up Race Studio 2 or Race Studio 3 to get my data there? How do I on these Wi-Fi settings? What do I do? What I wanted to do is talk a little bit today about those questions and set this up where we can have some folks join us in the coming weeks and not have that, boy, I wish I could even get to that spot, right? So that's what this is about, is answering some of those questions. We're going to do quite a bit of question and answer from the folks here that are live. If you're watching this later on YouTube, some of the links we talk about and the Q&A, the questions that we get will be in a link down below in the description box if you're watching this on YouTube later. So the first thing I want to do is talk about getting that data from your logger to analysis. So the first slide I wanted to talk about is just a little bit about me. I always we have co-hosts, and I always ask them to help me put together a slide, so I needed to do this, right? So it's only fair. I've been in motorsports most of my life, and my main background in racing was in off-road racing, and so I did a lot of the picture up on the upper left is some buggies. Did a lot of that for about 20 years, both short course racing and desert, Baja and the Mint 400 and races like that, plus the short track stuff. We raced at Crandon, Wisconsin, and the Mickey Thompson Entertainment Group short course stuff, and of course all the local stuff up here in the Northwest. Did a lot of the upper right one is started to race. That's me right there. Did a little bit of paved oval racing as well. Had a good time with that. And then my son got into racing after I retired out, and a little bit of background. That's a picture of our family Spec Miata that we put together after he had done karting for quite some time, and Legends and Bandoleros, and then Legends. And then we got into Spec Miata and won the 2006 Spec Miata runoffs race for SCCA. That's a picture of me riding with him on the victory lap. Then from that he went into MX5 Cup with a family-owned MX5 Cup car with Mazda's help, and then Mustang Challenge, and then he went into some off-road stuff, and then he is kind of backed away from some of the driving stuff now. But that's a lot. Those three things there is where a lot of my knowledge came from, as far as understanding how to use data to our advantage, was especially what, around focused on trying to get him faster and keep everything running. So and then the lower right picture is went to work for AIM a little over 10 years ago now, and this is basically during the pre-pandemic, from January till May, every weekend somewhere, giving on-site web seminars, and then of course trackside support. And this particular picture here was at VAC, the BMW prep shop in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So a lot of webinars, a lot of seminars like that, and of course, since the pandemic, we've been doing these. This is number 101 on the webinar side. So a little bit of background there on me that we maybe don't talk about all that much here. The question is I get a lot, and this is going to be one of those things that I'm just going to be touching on different things. They may or may not feel like they're terribly related as we go through here, but there's I ask a lot of people, I ask a lot of users, a lot of my tech support friends here at AIM. What are some of the questions that we're getting a lot that we haven't maybe covered in depth in the webinars or previous videos on YouTube? And let's chat about them and put this whole entire video together. One of the ones that we get a lot as people are just coming into using AIM products is what I've got this piece of hardware. What software do I use? So I made a couple of slides, and we'll just briefly go over. A lot of this stuff is going to be fairly brief, but just want people to have a good handle on what it is, and a place we can send people to take a look at some of these different topics later if we get that same question a lot. What software do I use with my AIM hardware? Let's talk about that a little bit. If you have the older generation of hardware, is something that we're probably not selling anymore. A good list of here is the older MXLs, the Pista Pro, Pro 05, the Stratas, Evo 3s, and the older Evo 4. We've got an Evo 4S now, so that one's different. But the Evo 4, the original generations of Solo DL, Micron 3s, XG Logs, the older Micron 3 and 4 karting products. Those will use the Race Studio 2 software to configure and calibrate, download, and analyze the data. Okay, that software is still available. I'm going to have a slide here in a moment where if you just wanted to get the Race Studio 2 software, we'll talk about how that kind of works as well. The next level, the next question though I get a lot is of course then I have this other piece of equipment. I've got a Solo 2 DL, the list over here on the right. What software do I use with that hardware? And then we're going to talk about in a moment the distinction of this list of pieces of hardware: MXMs, MXL2, MXGs, the 1.2 devices, Evo 4S, Evo 5, MXPs, all of our SmartyCam HDs, and of course the new PDM line, all of the stuff that's listed over here. Those are going to be configured, calibrated, and downloaded using Race Studio 3. We're going to talk about how we go and do the analysis part here in just a second. Let's talk about how do I connect it to the computer? What is some of the things that the questions we get about this quite a bit? Okay, I've got my new device. I've got an MXP. I've got a Solo 2. Some of the stuff that we've got right now. All of our AIM Sports software is designed for Windows operating system. Can that be run on the Apples or the Mac computers? We get that question quite a bit. The answer to that is yes, but only if you load Windows, right? We are a Windows-based operating system. There has been some talk and some efforts towards, iOS and some other things. Nothing that I can report on right now, but give you an idea. if you're going to go get a computer, we talk about this a lot, connecting to the computer. I get this question a lot is, what do I need for a laptop? I've probably had that question 4 or 5 times this week alone. Going to go get a laptop, a track laptop specific for this task. And I always have answered, and it's adjusting a little bit now, but I've always answered, if you can go to Best Buy and find one of the cheapest Windows-based, don't get a Chromebook or something like that, but Windows-based laptop, it's probably going to be powerful enough for what we do. Okay, that is being adjusted as we go, and only mainly because of the files, the video file sizes. With RayStudio 3 beta coming along, which we'll talk about in just a moment, it really comes down to, it's going to be, I used to put a small amount of thought process into the hard drive size and get a little extra power. You know, if you're moving money around trying to, you know, what's the best for what I'm going to try to do. I used to get maybe a little bit more power, a little bit more horsepower in my computer, and I would get a smaller hard drive, and I would take the video off and put it onto a USB, you know, SSD drive off to the side in between after a weekend, right? And now, because of RayStudio 3 beta, we're using that video, and you're going to want to end up keeping video on your machine with your data, because a year from now you're going to go back and you're going to want to look at, you know, that qualifying lap and have your video there. Now we're starting to talk. Maybe you want to consider maybe a little bit harder, larger hard drive. So think about that, and that's maybe just a little bit on the connecting to the computer piece. How do we connect our data loggers to our hardware? You know, for the most part, we have 3 options, and USB cables. Most of our stuff, most of our hardware can be connected with a USB. With the cable, comes in the box with everything, but it's just a USB mini cable, USB cable. And we do have a couple that are Wi-Fi only. The Solo 2, Solo 2 DL, and of course the Micron 5 being Wi-Fi only. So we have that option as well. And most of those, virtually all of our devices now also, even if we do have that USB offering, we do have a Wi-Fi offering. So the Wi-Fi, and we can do that in 2 different ways. The Wi-Fi access point, you know, that logger is just talking to your computer, just the 2 of them talking back and forth. Or we can do a local area network where you set up a laptop, you know, a computer in your trailer, and maybe you have a team where you have 4 or 5 different folks that are working out of a trailer, and we can have everything go through one computer, and then other people can connect to that and grab just their data if they wish. We have an entire YouTube video. In fact, it was #1. It was the very first YouTube video we did. We talked about downloading data. We're going to talk about some of those details again here today, downloading data. And we had a whole nother webinar where we talked just about Wi-Fi tips and tricks where we go in a lot deeper into that Wi-Fi access point and the local, you know, the WLAN side. We'll put the links up, and Robbie may have already done them, but we'll put those links up, and then we also will have those links in the YouTube description below for those of you watching this later, where you can learn with more depth than what we're going to talk about here today on the specifics of that. So, okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about is the software. I get that's the other question we get sometimes is, okay, how does this work? #1, where can I get it? A lot of our stuff does ship with a CD, right? A DVD right in the box where you can get it. I always suggest that you can load it off that if you wish, but you also then would want to go and get updates, you know, right away. Update your software. As you can see in the upper right corner of RayStudio 3, you've got a little cloud there, and that's how you check and see if there's any updates that are available, not only for the RayStudio 3 software, but also for all of the different pieces of firmware. So, but I tend to go right to aimsports.com and grab the software from there with a brand new load. So I just take it off of the web, and you know you're getting the latest thing at that point. Another question I get a lot is RayStudio 2. I've got an older Solo that I'm going to be using, right? Older Solo DL, or I've got an MXL. Do I really want to download RayStudio 3? And do I need all of that? Well, it certainly doesn't hurt, but if you only want Ray Studio 2, that's available by itself as well. If you go straight to the AIM website, I've got a screen capture of it down here below. You can download Ray Studio 3. You can download, Ray Studio 3, including the new beta analysis. We'll talk a little bit about that, but we've talked a lot about that here in previous webinars. You can also just get Ray Studio 2 if you want. So you have that option. What a lot of people don't understand fully is when you download Ray Studio 3, you not only get Ray Studio 3, but it is downloading and installing the latest version of Ray Studio 2 in the background as well. So keep that in mind. That's something that a lot of people don't know. They think they got to download Ray Studio 2 and Ray Studio 3 if they want that. So the you can do both at one time by just doing Ray Studio 3. Pretty handy. Another question we get a lot. What if I update my software? If I use the automatic update, you get the little cloud here with a down arrow saying that there's a brand new version of Ray Studio 3, and I go to update that. What does that do to my data? What does that do to my configurations? Let's take it another step. What if I need to delete Ray Studio 3 or Ray Studio 2 off of one laptop because I got a new one and I'm cleaning it off, whatever? What happens to the data? What happens to all my all that hard-earned data? Since the data is actually stored in a folder off to the side, if by default it's in a data folder, but you have the option of putting it anywhere you want. You can delete, you can update, you can do all these different things with Ray Studio software, and it's not going to touch your data or your configurations. So keep that in mind. I get that question a lot. I'm going to update this, but boy, I'm worried about, do I need to back up my data file? Do I need to, you do not need to worry about that. When you either delete the software, your data folders will still be there. If you want those gone too, it's a second step, right? You're going to need to do. But we make it fairly. We make that as good as we can, where you do not touch that data and some of those configuration files. Those data files will remain. So keep that in mind. That's another question we get a lot. Okay. We're going to go live in a minute. We'll set up and talk a little bit more about this screen, but I just wanted to touch on it real quickly. That talk about this setting up of this screen. It's one of the most important pieces of getting your data from your logger to your software. Ray Studio 2, the older Ray Studio 2, and I'm going to even attempt to change some cables around real quickly and attempt to get to the same option screen as it was in Ray Studio 2, so you can kind of see it's a lot of the same exact type of information, but this is all new and fancy here in Ray Studio 3. But we do have a deeper webinar that talks a lot about what we're going to hit on very quickly here today, and that is the Ray Studio 3 data download options. That was our very first webinar we did. Robbie will probably put the link out to that one. Certainly the link will be in the Ray Studio, I'm sorry, the YouTube description here down below when we get it up on YouTube as well. So, but we're going to talk about a little bit about this here in a moment with some live data and chat about this. This is one of the most important parts of getting your data where you want it with the proper naming. Give you some tools to do a lot of this automatically, which will make your life of getting your data from your logger to your computer much easier. This is not done by a lot of folks, and this is an area of frustration. So I want to spend a little bit of time doing this. Okay, analyzing data. This is a tie into 4 or 5 slides ago. And by the way, this presentation is available. I know Robbie's already linked it once or twice into the live data, into the live chat box. If you're watching this on YouTube later, you can go down and download this presentation as a PDF, so you have some of these notes for later. Currently, all data downloaded can be analyzed in Ray Studio Analysis. In fact, that is the typical process that we're expecting you to follow. Even if you're, and when I say all data, if you've got a brand new PDM that you're using as a data logger in your car and you want to download that data, you're going to grab it. You're going to use Ray Studio 3 to download it, and this is the production version, a screen capture of production version of Ray Studio 3. And there is a single icon up here in the upper left corner that has a 2 on it. one of the questions that I get quite a bit is, okay, I've downloaded my data. How do I even get to it, right? I've pushed the button, and we're going to actually maybe even do a quick download real quickly. I push the button, and then I come back here to this screen, and all you need to do is push on this is our analysis button right here. You push on this, it's going to open up RayStudio 2. It's going to open it up where you last left it, and that data file will be there, and all you're going to need to click on it. We'll talk a little bit about more of the details of that here in just a second, but we're expecting that a lot of folks are still are, unless they're using our beta software, are gathering their data in either and downloading it either in RayStudio 3, which we'll talk about in a moment, or they're downloading it in RayStudio 2. And if they're in 3, they're just pressing this, and everybody is looking at their data in RayStudio 2 analysis. Okay. In the very near future, certainly available to you now as a beta. This is the beta software. It looks exactly the same. Everything is the same except for it's got a second analysis button. If you want to use the beta software, and you understand how beta software works, and that there's it's a work in progress, but yet you'd like to see what the new RayStudio 3 software looks like for analysis, you go ahead and have your beta software. Now you have two choices. You can open your data still in RayStudio 2, just like you always have, or you can open it up in RayStudio 3 and with the new RayStudio 3 analysis software. So we have a full series of RayStudio 3 analysis webinars on the YouTube page. I'm not going to go into the details of all of that right now, but just wanted to show those of you that maybe haven't looked at that a lot. This is really the only difference from the user interface to you and I when we look at the beta software. We've got that additional button where we can then go into the analysis, which is quite a bit different. So keep that in mind. Okay, but generally speaking, RayStudio 2 analysis is available to you, and that's what we're going to talk about for the most part today. We're going to jump out now, and we're going to take a look at, we're going to connect to a gauge, show you just the basics of it. And there's a couple of tabs I want to go over. I want to go over the download tab, the one that we're on right now in the screen image. And I want to go over Wi-Fi and properties. Those two there are the most important ones for getting your data from the logger to analysis. Okay, so let's jump out of this, and let's see if I can bring up RayStudio 3 to the forefront. Okay. Again, we've got those webinars. We've talked about Wi-Fi and how to connect. I've just connected to a gauge real quickly. It happens to be with a cable, but the way that you always do it is you come in and you'll see these this little double-headed arrow. And if you're connected to a device either via the Wi-Fi connection or with a cable, you're going to see that'll change from gray to having some color. You can click on that, and then you can come down and you can click on the connected device. Okay, this one here is showing that it's a USB cable that's the connection. So if I click on that guy, we're talking, my computer right now is talking live to an MXP over here off to the side. And if to prove that point, we can come over here, and there's the live measures. If I reach over here and do my throttle sensor, you can see that I can barely reach it, but you can see here, if I click on one of those bars, we can put it over here into the bigger area. There is the throttle moving up and down. Got some live data here, and but the ones I want to talk about, there's two that I really want to talk about a lot, and that's to make this easier for you is under the download tab. If you want to do this, by the way, if you everything I'm about to show you can be done without connecting to a logger. It's just a little bit easier to do it that way. There's going to be a dialog box I'm going to open, and it's called Settings. And that settings box is available to you not only just through here, but if you wanted to, if I want to cancel out of that, if you're not connected to a data logger, you can come up to this little wrench in the upper left if you want to do this all at home before you ever head to the track, or even before you even go out into the garage or the race shop. You can do some of this stuff, sitting on with the laptop on your lap. Go into the settings button, options button, and then click data download right here. And that same dialog box is going to open up for you here. So you do not need to be connected, and you can go through and set all these up previous to even heading to the track or to the race shop. Okay, so the thing that I want to do here, I had everything kind of close out on me here. Let me open some of that back up. There we go. The what I really want to talk about is this downloading data tab. And again, I got there from download, the download tab, and then if you're connected underneath this cogged tooth over here, cogged wheel, or from the settings option. Here's the 2 or 3 really important things I want to make sure that everybody understands. The downloading of data, you have the option of telling it where you want it to go, and it's a one-time thing on this computer. I can tell it the root folder for download. We're just going to kind of walk down really quickly and then across, and the root folder for download. Right now, I've got it going into a folder of just a data folder with the D drive. If I want to change that, all I need to do is click on the change button, and I can come in and I can go to my data folder, and everything will just go to this data folder. Okay, you tell it, I'm going to select the folder. Everything now is going to go here, and then by these 2 tabs, I'm creating the subfolders underneath my D drive, which is a drive I've got set aside just for data. It might be, in your case, if it's a laptop, it might be your C drive, AIM Sport data. And then you want subfolders underneath that, but you pick the root. And then this is the important part. These next 2 are the most important part of making this easy for you. The folder structure. If you come in here, I want to automatically build another subfolder underneath my D drive with the date as my first folder. If to you it's more important to have them based on the track first, so D, and then the track, and then every data folder underneath that based on date, you would check the track, turn it on, and then we want to reorder these so the folder structure is going to be what you want. So that you click on the little up arrows, and we move that track up to the tip top. Oops, I missed it. And boom, and boom. Let's put the eraser back down a little bit. And one more. Now I have got to set up a folder structure under D, because that's what I changed it to. You can, whatever you wish to have it changed to. Then every time I download data, it's going to look at what track I have told it it's at, or the GPS says, whatever track you've loaded and it's used. There'll be another subfolder here called, Daytona, or whatever the track name happens to be. There'll be a subfolder, and there'll be another folder underneath it that every time I visited that track will have its own data folder for based on the date. Whatever is important to you. This is one of those things that it's if it's more important to you, if you have many racers on your team, if you have 4 or 5 drivers, you would then probably want every driver to have its own subfolder, and maybe it's it's the track, then the driver, then the date. It's really up to you. You select what's important to you. Okay, that comes underneath the download data tab folder structure, and then it's automated from that point on. The other one that is really, really important is the file name. This one has bitten a lot of people. They'll come in and they'll tell it that I want the driver's name. Oops, they'll want the driver's name and maybe the track as part of the file name itself. The trouble is now it comes up and you download the first time and everything is fine. The trouble is, and some of you may have run into this, or some of you are watching this later and you're having this problem, it comes up and it says, this file has already been created. Do you want to overwrite or delete, right? A little message comes up the second time you download it. It's because it's trying to download with the same exact name that you gave it before, because that's how you told it to be automated in doing it. So what I always do is I always include the date and the time as the very first item in my file naming tab. And then maybe I do want the driver's name, and maybe I want the track in there. Maybe I want the vehicle if you have multiple vehicles, whatever is important to you. But I always start with the date and the time. And now you've got a file that is the date and the time under bar, the driver's name under bar, and then the track. And I've got this logged file name in there, and I don't necessarily want that. So let's turn that off. Okay. And you're seeing the example of it up here. So you can kind of read that back. these two little steps of setting that folder structure and the file name will be very, very important to you. Will make this task a whole lot easier, and it's automated from then on. You don't have to ever worry about it. Connect your logger, it just automatically names them and puts them into the right folders for you. So keep that in mind. We have talked a little bit about that in the past, but I wanted to hit that heavy in this particular webinar as well. Another thing that a lot of people like to do, and I have done it myself as well, is I want to do a copy of that downloaded data to another folder. Maybe it's temporary, maybe it's a hard drive that goes on the side, maybe it's just a folder on the desktop, something that makes it really easy if you're at the track and you've got teammates and you want to be able to make a copy of these data files really quickly. If I click on this, I can just tell it where I want these to go. And I might go, I might want to change that and put it right on my desktop and click that and click on that. And now I'm going to get another folder with the same folder structure, and it's going to be putting all that data right there. Make it very easy at the end of the day to put it onto everybody's hard drive, so that when they go back to their motorhomes or their hotels or back home after the end of the weekend, everybody has their data. This is a fairly easy way of not having to go into your folder structure to find things and then just delete them off at the end of the weekend, right? So that copy downloaded data is a very handy option. Okay, those were the two big things I wanted to talk about. We don't download movies, generally speaking. We're going to take those off of the SD cards. The download venue types, this is where you thin down what type of sessions you're going to see when we hit the download button in a little bit. You can have all of these show up in your list, or you can thin it down to only show the ones that, the types of events that you do. And then at the advanced tab, the auto select downloadable files, if it sees you've downloaded some data, you've connected, and the Windows behavior, the software behavior can't automatically select any any sessions that have not been downloaded yet. So I tend to like to do that, and I also tend to like to skip selections of only 1 lap sessions. Those are when you've driven over to the gas pumps or you've just started the car in the paddock area. Do we really want to download those, or do we want to have a minimum of a full lap out on track before we automatically select those and have those ready to go? That's a kind of a really easy way of thinning out the number of data files you might see. Okay, and then merging of files, you have some options. I tend to not merge files. Every time I've started it or ran it, I want it to be its own data file. Some people really like to have all of their data files merged together. So we give you some of those options, but typically do not merge files is what we like to see. You can create these other things as you're downloading your data. I tend to leave all of these blank nowadays. Unless there's some reason for you to want to do this, we can build these files later. If I'm going to RayStudio 2 all the time, I'm not using RayStudio 3, and I often want to look at the data in Google, I will turn this checkbox on for Google KML. And then you've already got that, you already have that file created, and you can click on it and go and look at your data in Google Earth as a background image. The RayStudio 3 analysis in that beta software is, of course, giving us that that map in the background. So it's not needed in RayStudio 3, but if you're in RayStudio 2, you might want to leave that checked, and those they're fairly small data files. KML files are not that large. So, and then a big one here, and check this one when you come into the advanced tab, and which analysis mode are you going to use? It's going to, there is some automated processes where it will open the data in the background ready for you if you wish. I tend to leave them both checked. That means it's creating the files for RayStudio 2. All of that stuff is being done. If you're going to use one or the other all the time, you might want to uncheck one of those. But you're just creating some extra files here if you leave those both checked. So it's and they're not super large, so I tend to leave those checked. Okay. Wanted to go through that box. That box is probably the key to getting the data from your logger to your analysis software in the most clean and easy way with using RayStudio 3. So make sure that you have those set, and you're going to be okay. Okay. One other one I wanted to talk about here just a little bit, because it does affect the the data that you're seeing at and some of the properties that are being pre-filled for you is this Wi-Fi and properties tab. I like to give my data logger a name. It's when you're at the track and you click on a button and you're in the middle of the paddock, you can see all of the different Wi-Fi connections. And if an AIM logger is on, it's going to show. You won't be able to get at it probably because they've probably got it password protected. But I like to be able to very easily pick my logger out of a list. Right. So if you don't want everybody to know who it is, use some sort of an odd name, Joe's Bar and Grill or something. But I like to give it a name so it makes it easier for me to find it. The Wi-Fi power mode, I'm going to go through these really quickly. You can turn on the Wi-Fi where it's always on. If you got a power, your car doesn't have an alternator, or it's power is a problem for you. You don't want the Wi-Fi to be on even while you're out driving. You can go to auto. A lot of people do the auto mode. And what auto does is when your Wi-Fi senses a certain speed, I think it's 6 miles per hour, certain speed, the Wi-Fi chip turns itself off. So all the time you're out racing while you're running around, the Wi-Fi is off. And as soon as you come in and come to a stop, then the Wi-Fi chip will turn back on. Some people, if you've got an alternator and large batteries and it's in a sedan, it's maybe not the end of the world on as by default, but just an option for you. And if you're never going to use Wi-Fi and you don't want it to come on and off at all, you can turn it off. And so then this is not being broadcast out there when the power is on. Okay. Here's where we talked about, we've got that webinar previous to this one that is linked, access point or an existing network where you can change how this works. Here's where you want to plug in your password. Make sure you put in a password and don't make it password, right? Don't make it AIM, but put in your password, and then nobody can grab your data if you leave your data logger on. If you forget your password, you've got a new laptop all of a sudden, you've used that same password for 2 years with your AIM data logger, this happens, makes it very hard to get your data from your logger to your PC. If you've forgotten that password and you need it all of a sudden, there is one way to reset that, and you need to go onto your hardware, onto your MXP, your Micron 5, whatever it happens to be. And if you go into the Wi-Fi settings and you reset your Wi-Fi, it will reboot the Wi-Fi chip and reset everything. And one other piece of that is that it deletes the password out, but you have to have the hardware in your hand. You can't do that from the software. So you have to have personal possession of the hardware. Go through that menu item, and when you reset your Wi-Fi device, the password will be set back to nothing. So if you do have to reset your Wi-Fi device, doesn't wipe out any data or change any settings, do all that, reconnect with your Wi-Fi back up again, or a cable if you're that way, and then punch in your new password and retransmit it back in right away. That will keep your data your data safe. This is the box I really wanted to talk about, is the properties. When we go back to our presentation, I'm going to give you some more slides on this just so you understand this even better. But a lot of people don't even fill these in. They it's not a big deal, but what it just saves you a little bit of time during your download. If you plug in for this computer and this logger who the driver is, the racer's name, the vehicle name or number, whatever you want to call it. I called it AIM race car here on this one. The championship and the venue type, whatever you've plugged in here and transmitted to the AIM device will pre-populate when you go to download the data and pre-populate that information. Of course, the track is based on the track that you're at and some other things, but that's one thing that can save you some time during the download process, and some things you do not need to grab as much as if you fill in these properties. Emiliano calls those the special properties, and so we'll have a little slide on that a little bit later to reaffirm the stuff that we just said right there. Okay, so keep that in mind. The rest of these tabs, we're not going to go through some of those, but let's go in and let's grab a data download. One more thing while we're here. Let's say you've got 3 or 4 years of data on here, and you'd like to clear it off. There is to start fresh for the beginning of a new season. Maybe it's you're getting into this a little bit more. I want to kind of clear it off and go to the racetrack with a good, fresh, different thing. You can come in, you can click on here, and you can begin to just delete the files that you've got selected. The trouble is that sometimes it takes a number of times. It doesn't, even though you click on all, some are hidden back behind, and you have to kind of open up some of these little triangles to download there, to delete them all. There is one more. There's an option here a lot of people don't know about, and I just wanted to talk about it real quickly. If you want to clear off your data logger, the data's gone, so be careful. Only do this when you want to, but you, which is true as if you deleted here as well. But if I click on the cogged wheel and I come over here, there's an option here that says format memory. That is probably worded in maybe a little bit of a strong way. It doesn't literally, maybe it does, but you and I think of format wipes everything out. My AIM device doesn't know if it's a toaster or an AIM device, right? It doesn't wipe out the firmware, anything like that. But what it does is it clears the hard drive part that is storing data. Okay, if you really want to clear something off really good, that option is over there for you to format the memory and get rid of and clear all that out really quickly. So keep that in mind. I want to go ahead and download this data, so I've selected it. Even though it's only a single lap, I had to manually select it because remember we told it to not automatically select single laps. And then I'm going to hit the download button. Here's when that data dialog box opens up. All those settings we just talked about. It pre-populated all of these for me. Right, the track, it put in the track. I've got a local cart track here next to me that I can use, and then that it automatically fills because that's where we were at. And then you can come in and type in your comments, what your tire pressures were, whatever they happen to be. Of course, you can change these here if you wish. It wasn't a generic testing session; it was a race. When I change it here, it's going to change it in the XRK file that is created. It does not go back and change any of those settings that we did in our Wi-Fi and properties. So it's doing it only from this point forward in the data and not from this point backwards. So the next time you downloaded it would still say generic testing. So keep that in mind. Plug in some information. It goes across and it downloads the data. When that data is downloaded, what do I do now, right? And we've talked a little bit about this a little bit earlier. You now have the option of coming in and downloading or viewing your data that you've downloaded in RayStudio 2 or RayStudio 3 if you have beta. If you had the standard production RayStudio 3, you would only have a button, a 2 there. The way that you go in and do this is you click on it and it opens up RayStudio 2, brings it to the forefront, and there are some settings. I have mine set to automatically open it. This computer has some issue, so it might take it a second here to load. The data will actually open itself up and be ready to take a look at. Boom, up and running. And all I did in RayStudio 3 after I downloaded it was click on the 2. There is and here is the data that just came off of that logger, right? So what I want to do though is I want to close this data real quickly and show you one setting in RayStudio 2 for those of you that are following the standard process of using RayStudio 3 production, looking at your data in RayStudio 2. I'm going to close this data file real quickly. Let's see, let's close that data file. I'm going to go into File and Preferences. This is another really good little step to understand and set in your software one time, so it's the reaction and the things that happen are happening as you would expect them to. Number one, when you first download it, a lot of these are in metric units. Make sure that and you can only get here if all of your tests are closed. If you're coming up to File Preferences and it's grayed out, it's because you still have a test open. So make sure you close that. Change these units to what you expect to see in all of your data in RayStudio 2. And software management is a tab that we don't look at very often, and it affects how the data opens up and is being viewed in the process of looking at data from RayStudio 3 into RayStudio 2 to view it. And it's these two of these buttons down here are fairly important. The sort according to, we move up, how to arrange your measures list. By default, it has use logger configuration order has been checked. I like to sort according to user profile list. That is just setting myself up to have my user profiles and having it merges. If you have multiple sessions open, it merges the names together. Some of you may have opened up multiple sessions and see you have a chunk of data from one test and a chunk of data, even though it's from the same car, they'll be split apart. This is one of the things that changes that and puts those together. That's one of the outward things of knowing that you've got this checked correctly. So I like to have that sort according to user profile list. And then this one here is let's talk about these three real quickly. Show the DRK, that we call that a DRAC file, or the main data file. We're going to talk about files in just a moment when we jump out of here and file naming. But show the DRAC file properties in the import dialog. When you're importing data, you can actually show that it came from this track and this, this is who the driver was. Not super important, but if you're doing a lot of importing data, you might want to have that checked. By doing our normal download process, that this is having no difference to you. But this one here, I like these next two. Automatically add to the downloaded test, because that was checked. When I clicked on the number 2 button in RayStudio 3, it automatically added that downloaded test, and it opened it up, and boom, we were viewing the data. If I had these two unchecked, it would have been added to RayStudio 2. You would have had to open RayStudio 2 and then start the process of opening the test. But I like it to, hey, when I click on that button, my steps I'm going to always take: open up RayStudio 2, go to that file that I just downloaded and I just clicked on the button, and I want to view it. So let's automatically add the downloaded test to RayStudio 2. And when we open it, and this one, some people, I bet you 80% of you would probably like to have this switched on. Switch to measure view upon test load. If you have that checked like I do, no matter what functions I have open, it's going to open to the measures view, the squiggly lines. You might have some other functions up and running, right? A track report, or you might have some other things running in the background, but it's always going to show you the test first, the session first, as a measured view on top when you have this box checked. Most people like that, so you might want to turn that on, but it's again option for you. So keep that in mind. This software management tab under preferences, if I close that out again, let's cancel it, and it's under file and preferences. You get that dialog box, set up your units the first time, they stay. All of this is a one-time set, and then don't worry about it after that. And then I like to sort according to user profile lists, and I just turn all 3 of these on, and it seems to work very, very well for me. So keep that in mind as you set this up one time. From then on, when you click on the 2 in RayStudio 3 after downloading your data, you're off and running. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about in the live data is, I've seen this people clicking around, or for whatever reason, every once in a while it gets off of this. But generally speaking, if you have your selection criteria turned off, the latest test that you just downloaded is going to be the top one in the list. So if it's very easy to find, even if you didn't have it set to automatically open it and open to the measures graph, your test is going to be here right at the tip top. If it's not, all of these headings across this test database list, we can click on this and we can sort by that column, normal Windows functionality. If I wanted to sort by the best laps, I would just click on that tab, and you click once and it's ascending, you click again, it's descending. So it's the fastest lap at the top, slowest at the bottom, or vice versa, depending on if you click it twice. You can sort by drivers, you can sort by all these things, but what I suggest you do is sort by, and it's the way the software defaults, but somebody may have clicked on it. I sort by test date, and I have the newest one at the top. I can always find my data in a hurry, so it's very helpful. I noticed in the Tice mentions in a note there, and it's typically over in the chat box, all the way over at the right. If you scroll way over, it's typically the very last column. There's a unique identifier number that has been assigned for each of your downloaded tests. And the test I just downloaded was test number 3613. And those are, you can sort by that as well. And then your latest one will be up there. But the test date is the date that the test happens. So it typically is going to fall up there. But if you waited 2 months to download a test, of course, it would fall down the list a little bit. So if that is your the foolproof way of having it always be the last one on the top, is sort by this column all the way over to the right. So good point, Tice. Okay, there's the data. Again, you could just double click on it and open it, and we would be off and running. But I did want to jump back into the presentation and go through a couple last slides. I'm going to probably bring Emiliano, is going to turn on his microphone, come in and join us. Let me bring the presentation back up. Boom, here. I wanted to talk. Internet having a few issues. I hope it's not for everybody. But if it is, we're recording here locally, so we'll be able to see it, I hope, later. The file types. This was an area that I get a lot of questions about, and I just wanted to chat a little bit about it and bring Emiliano in. And it looks like he is up here now. I talk about the different file types that are built and created. I'm going to jump ahead a slide just to let you know what you're about to see. Here is a list of what every one of these are. Emiliano put together a nice little diagram. And Emiliano, if you can talk to this just a little bit, let me introduce it, and then you can talk to it a little bit. If you're downloading from Ray Studio 2, this red box is generating, it's circling that Ray Studio 2 creates a file structure, and then what is created from there. Ray Studio 3 is surrounded by this green box and how it does it, and then Ray Studio 2 analysis may take and create some other files, and that's driven by the blue box. Feed us a little bit more information, especially about the Ray Studio 3 side, and because that's what the bulk of folks are using, and then what Ray Studio 2 does, and finally, what files are important to us. We'll go to the next sheet when you do this one, but what files are important to us for sharing data back and forth, either to us as tech support or teammates and friends or whatever it happens to be.
Okay. Hello, everybody. As first, thank you for having me here. And just to start, I'd like to start with Ray Studio 2, or no, maybe we can talk at first of the top part of these diagrams. There is for both software, both Ray Studio 2 and Ray Studio 3, the first part that happens upon a download is the copy. Is the creation on the local PC of the copy of the memory of the device. And that's a DAT or IMD file for RS to download. The DAT is to my memory now. DAT is for MXL and Evo 3, Evo 4, and the IMD is for the microns, micron 3, micron 4. And
the old original SmartyCam was an IMD as well.
Okay. I didn't know. I didn't remember. Yeah. While for the Ray Studio 3, the same happens with an XRZ or XRK file, and for MOV. MOV is downloaded from the SmartyCams or from the SD cards. Usually, I say that downloading MOV files from the SmartyCam is a job for the brave, because it takes a lot of time.
Large files.
My preference is would be to download from an SD card. Just to bring the MOV files from the SD card to the PC, you can also use Windows Explorer. Simply, you can copy the files from the SD and place them in whichever directory you create on your PC. Given the fact that we need a copy on the local PC of what's in the devices, let's jump to what the Wasilko does with the DAT or IMD files. Once the copy of the memory is created on the local PC, the memory is analyzed, parsed, looking for all samples and for any possible mistake, and DRK that I call the DRK-A plus an RRK file are created on the local PC. The DRK that I called A is a DRK file, a perfectly valid DRK file that's containing all the sampled values for all the channels, while the RRK files are containing all the GPS information for the session. For the previous generation devices like MXL and Evo 3, Evo 4, the GPS was an addition, was not shipped with the device originally, and GPS was not born together with the device. So we used to separate the information in two different files. One is the DRK and the one is the RRK. Once these two files were created, the RS2 analysis software was taking them to create at first a BAK file that was a backup copy of the DRK file, of the very first version of the DRK file. And then the RS2 analysis created a modified copy of the DRK, including some computed GPS information like GPS speed, GPS accelerations, GPS gyro, and position accuracy, and all GPS stuff, plus a GPK file. A GPK file was always including GPS information, but they were kind of crunched in a different format. They were transformed into a different format that was specific for RS2 analysis views. Let's see what happens with the RISC-V3 once we have the copy of the memory that can be an XRZ or XRK. In the XRZ, the Z letter stands for zipped. It's a compressed version of the XRK. The devices normally have enough power to compress the XRK while logging it, so they save it zipped. So to minimize the time needed for the download for the copy of the file into the local PC. In case it needs the device, any single device can decide not to save an XRZ but to save an XRK, and the download will be downloading the download software will be downloading that one for the download purpose is the same. It only takes a little bit longer. Once the XRZ file is downloaded on the PC, it gets expanded into an XRK, and the download is parsing the XRK file, looking for samples and everything needed. For RS3 analysis purpose only, the XRK and the MOV are parsed, and those and their information is saved into the RS3A database. This is the only thing that are needed. On the local PC, when in RS3 beta you want to download also for Wasilko analysis, the Wasilko is creating a DRK A and an RRK file to be compatible with the previous generation software and to be compatible with the RS2 analysis. While managing MOV files, we go creating also a small file named BMO. It's including basically we can say it's including the metadata that are saved into the MOV file to be quicker in opening the MOV file when needed, for example, for the movie functions inside the Ray Studio 3. The BMO could not be needed for the analysis, for the Studio 3 analysis, but at the moment we go creating it anyway. It could disappear in the future if we remove the movie feature in Ray Studio 3. These are all the files that are created on the local PC. In case you want to share files with anyone, I can say that staying inside Ray Studio 3, you can safely share only the XRK or the XRZ. The content, the information content they have is absolutely the same. Either XRZ or XRK are the same, and the MOV. These are the two files. If you share an XRZ and you open it into another PC, a new XRK will be created, and the data will be parsed perfectly to create a DRK or to be copied into the database. The same with an MOV file. When you move an MOV file to another PC, a new BMO file is created by the new software. And in case you want to share some files with friends or teammates inside the RS2 world, you can safely share DRK and GPK, or DRK, GPK, and RRK. No problem. No problem at all.
So RRK can replace the GPK, so you can just be DRK and RRK, or would you need all three of them?
For what I remember, if you have a DRK and RRK, a new GPK would be created.
Gotcha. Okay, but for the most part, if you're pulling out of Ray Studio 2 folder structure, it's DRK and GPK is what's needed. Yeah. If you're pulling out of Ray Studio 3 data structure, it's going to be the XRK and the movie file. And the XRZ is the compressed version of the XRK, so that would work as well.
Yeah. It's not we call it zipped even if it's not a zip. Compression format, but it's compressed. Yes.
Perfect.
In both words, RS2 and RS3, if you use the proper export functions from the database, you get the correct files that you need.
As a matter of fact, if you use the export functions from Ray Studio 2, you end up with a lot of extra files too, the DAT file and some other things, right? So if you're trying to put it into an email and size is important to try to get it as small as possible, you can get down to just the DRK and the GPK, or just the XRZ is your best.
Sure.
And of course, the movie files are so large, it's probably not going to go over via email. So you're gonna have to Dropbox or OneDrive or something.
Yeah.
So, okay, and to make it I appreciate Emiliano coming on here last minute and doing that. It's been a question we get a lot. The other one is just a nice list of some basic information of what each one of these files are. So with this page and the previous one, you should have a pretty good idea of understanding how what's happening with all these different file types. Okay. Perfect. And then Emiliano also put together a couple of slides, and they're reiterations of what I've already said, but I wanted them included into the presentation for if you're looking at it later. He calls it the special properties, the Ray RayStudio 3 special properties. We chatted about pre-filling these in and transmitting it onto the logger, so these automatically, they copy those values into the XRK, XRZ files. So that's important. This one I'll let you maybe add just a little bit to. We're running a little bit long, but let you add a little bit. Here's your properties. You also can, in case you select, you mentioned I select sessions with different properties, I can choose to keep them or change them into something else. So you have some pull down options here to change those. What happens with that data when you do that, thinking about moving ahead with the XRZ or XRK file and going back to what the logger is?
What do you mean? No. For sure, when you download and you change these properties, they will not go to the logger. The only place where to modify those information into the logger is the previous page. Yeah, correctly. This one. If you change them during the download, the new values will be saved into the XRK files, and be available for the analysis. The difference between the two images here is that in the left image, if you select all the files with upon downloading, if you select all the files with the same properties, the properties from those files will be populating the download page. In case you select, say one file in which the racer was Emiliano and another one in which the racer was Roger, in the racer field, the download will be telling you that you choose the two different racers, and you can upon this you can have XRK file. Each XRK file with its own original racer, or have a new value. You can choose to have both XRK file with either Emiliano or Roger, or a new value you can enter directly into the download dialog box. So
perfect. Perfect. So yeah, it's powerful, right? So as far as some of these options, in case you have different drivers, different cars, and you're downloading from at the same time. So, okay. And then and you just go on to reiterate here that changes I make here really only affect the RayStudio 3 analysis and is embedded into that XRK file, and goes from there forward. No change will be done back into the device. So those default values. The reason I chatted with Emiliano yesterday a little bit and decided to have him, he offered to make a couple of slides, is I did get some folks that were thinking that if I changed them here, that it actually changed those default properties that you set and transmitted to your gauge early on before the event. And that's not true. What you end up with is you can change them here going into the XRK and into RayStudio 3, but the next time you download it, it'll be back to what those initial properties were. So, okay, not a big deal. It's just the question comes up, so I just wanted to kind of cover it. And I think it's doing it the right way that we would want it to do. Okay, perfect. Anything else you'd like to add there, Emiliano, as we're kind of closing this one out? I think you covered everything pretty well there.
I think I'm okay, and as usual, I thank you all.
Thank you very much. The biggest takeaway here for those of you is that have been wondering about file types and moving some stuff around. We'll give you a little bit of a layout of how it kind of works, and this is a page that's going to be printed out, I'm sure, by any number of you, that will talk about what all these different files are and how they kind of interact. So those are available for you. Appreciated everybody. Had lots of very good questions, and we covered some basics. Well, this particular video will be linked up on YouTube fairly quickly. and I will, and then I'll modify it a little bit later, and we'll give it chapters, and we'll break it into the individual topics that we talked about, and make it a little bit easier to search for those folks that are needing to maybe search for how do I, do X, and if we talked about it here, it'll be found in the search a little bit easier. But it'll be up on YouTube here very shortly. It'll be our 166th video up there, so we've got quite a few up there. So that's pretty good. Look forward to hearing just within an hour or so. Great to have everybody here. I love it. We're seeing lots and lots of racers out at the racetrack every weekend. Of course, all the phone calls and support that we get. Make sure you continue to do that. We want to help you in any way we can with getting your AIM hardware and your AIM software up and doing what it needs to do for you. It's really all about making it work the best that we can make it work for you. So give us a holler, and we'll fix you up and do the best we can. I mentioned a little bit earlier that we're going to be doing a series of webinars where we're going to talk about truly the data analysis process, where in the past what we've done a lot, and I think rightly so, we talked about functionality. How does this function work? How do I use it in data analysis with some examples? But we really were more functioning on talking about the function itself. Our next series of maybe 6 to 8 webinars that we're going to do are going to be the data analysis process. We're going to use the tools, obviously, RayStudio 2, RayStudio 3, but what we're really going to focus on is how to analyze data. We've got a data session. We're going to look at it, and our first host is going to be James Colburn. Is going to come on and talk about a process that he worked through with a driver coach in this particular case that he brought in and was helping him. And he had a data file. He noticed some driving techniques that he was doing, the coach did, and they found it in the data file. He's going to show that data file. We're going to talk about what they saw, what they changed, and then they're going to go and we're going to look at the very next data file, and we're going to see if the improvement was there. If it wasn't, how much time did it gain? What did it lose? We're going to put that all together, and we're going to have back-to-back sessions of the pre, where we find the issue, whether it be driving. In future ones, it'll be different things on cars and suspension setups and tire pressures, whatever happens to be our co-host is going to show, but the focus is going to be on how to read and do the analysis. Okay, and then always have a second data file right afterwards and see if the improvement was there, or if it went slower, there wasn't a big improvement, which direction it actually went. So that's our next focus on our webinars, is the actual data analysis process. Next week, James Colburn, as I mentioned, will be here, and we'll be talking about some data that he has noticed, and it was more, this particular one was that driver performance side that we're going to be looking at. So that'll be great fun. Look forward to having James here a week from today. So thank you everybody for coming. Some contact information, I didn't get Emiliano's on there, but if you have a question for Emiliano, software@aimsportline.com, or email me at the email list below, roger@aimsports.com, and I'll put you in touch with Emiliano if you have a direct question for him. I appreciate everybody being here for our 101st webinar. It's been a great run, and looking forward to seeing and having James here next week, and of course all of you here with us. So looking forward to it. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Talk to you guys soon.